You ever have one of those mornings where you just know something's about to go sideways, but you can't put your finger on it? That was me, sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee, the sun just creeping over the rooftops, birds doing their usual chirpy thing, and me thinking about absolutely nothing serious, just scrolling through emails, when I realized my internet was dead. Completely dead. And not in a glitchy, temporary kind of way, like someone had actually gone outside and yanked the line out of the ground. My first thought was, okay, maybe it's the provider, maybe there's a storm coming. But no, it was a calm, perfect, ridiculously sunny day. And then I noticed the suspicious little yellow tag flapping in the breeze next to my cable box. Property line violation. Property line violation? On my own lawn. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, because I had this sinking feeling, this kind of gut twist that happens when you just know somebody did something on purpose. And there she was, Marlene, my next-door neighbor, standing there with that look on her face. You know the one. The one where people think they're just doing everyone a favor, but it's really all about control. She's always been that way, the kind of HOA president who treats our little suburban stretch like her personal kingdom, clipboard in hand, peering at everybody like she's a sheriff in some low-budget western. I swear she's walked past me 20 times over the years muttering about flower beds, fences, trash cans, and now apparently my internet, which I thought was my own business. But nope. This time, she'd apparently taken it into her own hands, literally, to enforce HOA rules, except what she'd done was trespass and sabotage. I wanted to shout. I wanted to run outside. But I also had this weird cocktail of fear and disbelief because it didn't even feel real. I mean, who cuts someone's internet cable? That's not a prank. That's not a warning. That's an act of war. Minor suburban war, but war nonetheless. And I could see her there, clipboard clutched tight, smirking, like she had just single-handedly saved the community from some invisible menace. The kind of smirk that just makes your blood boil, because you know they don't even realize they're being absurd. So I did what any rational adult would do in 2024. I grabbed my phone and started filming. I mean, evidence, right? But as I'm recording, there's this sound of tires crunching on gravel, and I swear my stomach just dropped. Because within minutes, there's this convoy of black SUVs rolling up the street, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely not normal. Windows down, a couple of guys in suits, sunglasses, the works, looking around like they just teleported from a spy movie. And I see Marlene's jaw drop. Her eyes go wide, that smug little castle owner grin wiped clean off her face. She's frozen there with her clipboard shaking in her hands, and I could see the gears turning in her head, realizing she might have underestimated just how seriously her little vendetta could escalate. Now, I'm not exaggerating when I say that this all happened in under 30 minutes from the moment I realized my internet was gone. 30 minutes. And honestly, my heart was racing. But also I couldn't stop laughing because the absurdity of it all hit me. Her cutting a cable like she's some kind of vigilante HOA hero. And now, these people who looked like they'd walked out of a Pentagon briefing were standing on her front lawn. I mean, I'm not exactly the kind of person who hangs out with secret agents on a normal Tuesday, but here we are. And the thing is, she didn't run. She didn't apologize. She just stared, kind of paralyzed, like she was waiting for the scene to resolve itself. But you could see the panic creeping in slowly, painfully, the kind that comes from realizing maybe you overstepped in a way you can't come back from. So while she's frozen, I can't help but start narrating to my phone, low voice, trying not to lose it. Yeah. Folks, this is Marlene, HOA president extraordinaire, who apparently thinks she owns more than her house, who just cut my internet for reasons known only to her and now. I think we have a special delivery from, well, let's just say some very official people. And she finally opens her mouth to say something like, I was just enforcing the rules, and I swear to God it sounded like a child caught stealing cookies, except instead of cookies, it's the lifeblood of my work-from-home life. Meanwhile, one of the guys in suit steps forward, clipboard in hand, looks at her with the kind of calm authority that makes grown adults shrink in their own skin, and says something like, "Ma'am, cutting someone's service line is a federal offense. You're going to want to stay right there while we sort this out." And at that moment, you could hear a pin drop. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath, and I swear I saw her knees buckle ever so slightly. That's when I realized, not only had she made a colossal mistake, she had absolutely no idea the magnitude of it. and the sheer theatricality of her little act was about to explode into something way bigger than she had imagined. And here's the thing. While the situation itself was surreal, the emotions were even more complicated. I wasn't just angry about losing internet. I was angry that someone could think it's okay to impose themselves like that, that someone could take a small, silly community rule and weaponize it against a neighbor. And that moment when you see that power imbalance play out in real time it's weird. You feel a mixture of triumph, because finally justice is stepping in, and anxiety, because you never know how people will react when cornered, and a strange kind of disbelief that life can be this cinematic without you even asking for it. And I think that's what makes this story stick with me, the way ordinary suburban life can just spiral into something totally unhinged in the blink of an eye. And you realize, yeah, the internet is vital, but people's egos? Way more dangerous. Anyway, I stayed on the porch, filming, narrating to my phone, trying to capture everything before it got messy or worse, because in those 30 minutes, you see a version of your neighbor you've never seen before, and it's fascinating and terrifying all at once. And while I laughed at first, okay, maybe I'm still laughing a little bit, the deeper part of me was watching, absorbing the absurdity, the injustice, the sheer theater of it all, and I realized that this morning, this quiet, sunny morning, was not going to be just another Tuesday. It was going to be one of those stories you tell for years, the kind that makes people shake their heads, laugh, and maybe rethink the whole HOA thing. So there I was, still on my porch, phone in hand, heart thudding like a drum solo, watching Marlene's expression slowly morph from smug satisfaction to something resembling pure panic. It's like watching a cartoon in real life, honestly. Her mouth opens, then closes, her clipboard trembling in that tight grip, and I swear she looked around like the street had suddenly become a courtroom, jury included. And the guys in black suits, who I was now fully convinced were not just random HOA enforcers, but some kind of government-level operatives. Because who else shows up this fast, dressed like they've stepped out of a high-budget spy flick? They start moving with that quiet, deliberate pace, the kind that makes you think, yes, they mean business, and no, they are not here for small talk. One of them walks up to Marlene, not rushing, just steady, calm, voice low but sharp. "Ma'am, step away from the cable box." And she freezes, like he just asked her to dismantle her entire identity. I could almost hear the mental gears grinding in her head, the denial, the indignation, the tiny voice whispering, "Maybe I can talk my way out of this." And for a moment, she actually opens her mouth, probably to say something like, "I was only," but stops. Herself, like even she realizes that whatever excuse she's about to offer isn't going to matter, not here, not now. Meanwhile, I'm standing there on the porch, narrating to my phone like a sports commentator who just witnessed a miracle, whispering, "Folks, you are not going to believe this. My neighbor just cut my internet." And apparently, the equivalent of the entire command center of some serious organization is now here to address it. And the way she looked at me then, her eyes wide, a mixture of fear and embarrassment, I realized that all those petty HOA disputes we've had over the years, the fence lines, the holiday lights, the perfectly straight flower beds, it all culminated in this surreal moment where her little obsession collided with something way beyond her imagination. And it escalates quickly. One of the agents, the one who seems to be in charge, kneels down near the cable box, examining the damage with tools I can't even name, tapping here, checking connections there, and Marlene can't stop shifting her weight, muttering under her breath, "I didn't mean. This is just." I was enforcing the rules, and the words just hang in the air, ridiculous and feeble against the authority standing on her lawn. I think that's when I first realized the scale of her mistake, not just legally, but psychologically. She's not prepared for the consequences of a small, vindictive action. And there's this strange, almost cinematic irony in watching her realize that the world does not bend to her petty obsessions. And then, the lead guy stands up, turning to her with that calm but unyielding look, the kind that makes your knees weak even if you're not guilty of anything, and says, "Ma'am, property destruction, tampering with utility lines, and interfering with a neighbor's services, those are serious offenses. We're documenting this." And I swear, her face goes pale in a way that makes her lipstick look like it belongs on a ghost. I can almost hear the slow-motion music playing in the back of my mind, The kind you hear in movies right before someone's world changes forever. And I thought, wow, this is surreal. This is actually happening, and I might need therapy after this. But also I can't stop filming because it's just too perfect. And here's where it gets more intense. The tension isn't just external, it's internal too. I'm standing there, feeling the rush of vindication, but also a weird, almost guilty fascination. Like, should I be enjoying this? I've had countless petty disputes with Marlene over the years. Trash bins slightly off the line, garden beds that weren't perfectly straight, but nothing like this. And suddenly, I see this human vulnerability in her, the raw fear, the ego crumbling in real time, and I can't look away. And I start thinking, maybe this is a cautionary tale about power, about ego, about how even the smallest actions can have consequences you can't anticipate. And I whisper to myself, barely audible, yeah, Marlene, welcome to reality. Then it gets cinematic. One of the agents pulls out a small tablet, swiping through images, and I see her eyes tracking the screen, panicked, realizing that every action she's taken, every petty complaint, every neighborhood scolding, every little battle she thought she won, suddenly has a permanent record. It's like watching someone discover that the rules they believed in their own bubble don't apply outside it. And at that point, she tries to charm her way out, offering nervous smiles, small apologies, stammering words, but it's too late. They're not here for negotiation. They're here to enforce consequences. And that's when the drama hits its peak. The lead agent finally looks up at me, nods subtly, and I feel this almost surreal validation, like the universe is tipping its hat. And I can't resist muttering quietly into my phone. And ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for. Marlene's bubble of control has officially burst. And she hears it, of course, and glares, but her glare doesn't have the bite it used to. It's shaky, uncertain, and I realize that the entire morning, the entire mess, has become a mirror reflecting her obsession, her pettiness, her need to control things that don't belong to her. And it's oddly satisfying. Not maliciously, just right. And while all this is happening, the neighbors start to peek out of their windows, some whispering, some laughing quietly, some filming on their phones too, because let's face it, this isn't your average HOA dispute. This is like watching a small-time soap opera collide with a government procedural. And Marlene is realizing, very painfully, that the entire street is witnessing her undoing. She tries one last desperate tactic, raising her voice. I was just following the rules. You can't do this to me. And the agent calmly responds, ma'am, following the rules does not include property destruction. Step back. And the way he says it, calm, final, unflinching. It's like watching a judge deliver a verdict before the trial even starts. And then it gets almost surreal. One of them gently kneels, reconnects the cable, checks a few switches, and suddenly the internet flickers back on. Just like that. And I hear the familiar chime of notifications, emails, messages coming in, work updates, the digital hum of life restored. I can't stop laughing quietly into my phone because the absurdity of it all hits me. The drama, the panic, the cosmic justice of it. And yet, the world goes on, and my internet is back. And Marlene? She's just standing there, speechless, clipboard dropping to her feet, shoulders slumping, staring at the cable like it's some mystical force she can't comprehend. And I realize she has just been schooled by forces bigger than herself, and there's nothing she can do but absorb it. And in that moment, I feel this weird, almost meditative satisfaction. Not just because my internet is back, but because the lesson has been delivered in the most cinematic, surreal way possible. I can feel her humiliation, her internal collapse, the ego bruised in front of the entire neighborhood, and it's strangely poetic. And I whisper to my phone, voice low, sometimes the universe has a sense of humor, and today, it's exquisite. And as I watch her finally retreat inside her house, shoulders hunched, muttering to herself, I think about all the petty battles we fight, all the little rules we enforce on each other, and how quickly things can spiral out of control when ego takes the wheel. And then, just as I'm thinking the chaos is over, I catch myself noticing something. The agents aren't leaving yet. They're standing at the edge of the driveway, talking quietly, scanning the street, and I realize this isn't just about me, or Marlene, or the HOA rules. It's about setting a precedent, a warning, maybe even a performance. And the thought hits me that in a way, my quiet suburban street has just been transformed into a stage, a living lesson on the dangers of petty power and the invisible forces that can step in when someone crosses a line. And it's both thrilling and terrifying. I take a deep breath, looking at my porch, my coffee long cold, the sun higher in the sky, and I think, yeah, I'll probably tell this story for the rest of my life. Not because I'm proud, but because it's rare, almost absurd, the way everyday life can suddenly feel like a movie. And somewhere, inside, I feel a shift, not just in Marlene, but in me too. This realization that standing up, documenting the absurdity, laughing through fear and disbelief, that's a kind of courage. And I know, deep down, that this story isn't just about a cut cable or an overzealous neighbor. It's about power, ego, and the strange poetic justice that sometimes arrives in black SUVs, 30 minutes too fast, but exactly on time. By the time the agents finally start packing up, Marlene is slumped in a chair on her porch, still clutching what's left of her clipboard like. It's a lifeline. Her eyes keep darting toward me, then to the street, then back down at her hands, like she's trying to make sense of the entire morning, the way a person does when reality has punched them in the gut and left them gasping. I can hear her muttering under her breath, a combination of disbelief and regret. I didn't think it would. And I stopped myself from finishing the narration on my phone because, honestly, she's unraveling in real time. And even though part of me is still reveling in cosmic justice, another part of me can't help but feel a strange twinge of empathy. And the street is quiet now, the kind of quiet that feels heavier than any silence I've ever known. The neighbor's windows watching like a jury waiting for the verdict, and I think, yeah, this is exactly the moment where ordinary life meets consequence. The agents finish taking notes, snapping a few photos for documentation, and then one of them looks at Marlene, very calmly, very pointedly, and says, "You'll receive further instructions from the authorities. Expect this to be taken very seriously. And next time, consider the law before your ego." And then they leave, slipping into their black SUVs as quietly as they arrived, leaving a sort of reverent emptiness in their wake, like the storm just passed, but the landscape has changed forever. Marlene sits there for a long moment after they drive away, just staring at the street, the cable box, my house, me. And I swear I can see the thought processes spinning in her head, the calculations, the excuses, the endless what-ifs. And the weird thing is, I'm not yelling at her. I'm not even speaking. I just sit on my porch, coffee in hand, and let the silence do the talking. And there's something profoundly satisfying in that. Not because I want her to suffer, not because I'm petty, well, maybe just a little, but because the universe handled it, served her the lesson, and all I had to do was show up and witness it. After a while, she finally speaks, voice quiet, fragile even. I guess I misjudged, and I can hear the tiniest crack in the armor she's spent years building. And I respond, slowly, keeping my voice soft but steady. Yeah, you did. And now we both know the stakes when someone decides to take things into their own hands. And I think she realizes, really realizes, that this isn't a matter of HOA rules, or flowers, or fences anymore. It's about respect, boundaries, and understanding that small actions can ripple into chaos in ways you never imagine. And I start thinking about everything that led up to this. The petty arguments over who mowed their lawn first, who parked in the wrong spot, the constant nitpicking about invisible lines, and it all seems simultaneously ridiculous and terrifying. Ridiculous because we've spent years obsessing over things that, in the grand scheme, mean nothing, and terrifying because that obsession can turn destructive if unchecked. And I realize that's what made this story feel so cinematic, so gripping. It's the human drama, the ego, the control, the misjudgment, playing out in real time, with real consequences, in front of an entire neighborhood that will never look at a yellow HOA tag the same way again. So we sit there for a moment, Marlene and I, the air between us thick but oddly calm now. And I start reflecting on my own feelings, because it's not just about her. It's about me too, about how I handled it, how I stood my ground, how I stayed composed while witnessing someone's ego crash spectacularly. And I realized that, in some strange way, this morning has changed me. It's made me more aware of the absurdity in everyday life, the unpredictable twists, The invisible forces that can turn a petty dispute into something larger than anyone could imagine. And yeah, it's made me appreciate my internet more, but also my boundaries, my patience, and the way I choose to confront absurdity when it comes knocking. And Marlene, for her part, eventually gets up, shuffles inside, dragging what's left of her pride with her. I watch the door close, and I can't help but smile a little, because justice, small, surreal, and entirely cinematic, has been served. And the street, slowly, begins to breathe again. The neighbors retreat, the windows close, the quiet settles over the houses like a blanket, but the story lingers in the air, palpable, like electricity after a storm. Later that afternoon, I check my emails, my messages, my notifications, and everything is back online, humming along, life restored. But the experience, the tension, the absurdity, the human drama, stays with me. And I realize that it's not just a story about HOA rules or a cut cable. It's about power, control, the consequences of ego, and the unexpected ways the universe, or maybe just life itself, chooses to balance the scales. And I think, yeah, there's something poetic about that. And of course, the story doesn't end neatly. Marlene will have to deal with whatever repercussions come from her actions. I'll have to navigate the awkwardness of our future interactions, the sideways glances, the whispered comments from neighbors who all know what happened. And I'll have this story, this perfectly absurd, perfectly human story that I can tell again and again, hoping people listen and maybe learn something, or at least laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. And I realize, as I sip my long cold coffee, that life is full of these tiny, explosive moments, the ones that force us to confront ego, control, and the limits of human absurdity. And sometimes, they arrive in black SUVs, 30 minutes too fast, but exactly on time, leaving you to witness, reflect, and maybe, just maybe, find the humor in it all. And so, as the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the street, I can't help but think, yeah, Marlene got schooled today, but the real lesson is for all of us. About patience, humility, respect, and the fragile illusion of control we all cling to. And as I set my cup down, I look at the camera, or my phone, or whoever's listening, and I say, what would you have done if this happened to you? Would you call the authorities? Would you try to reason with her? Or would you just watch? And I leave it hanging, because that's the beauty of it. The story isn't just mine. It belongs to anyone who's ever faced petty injustice, anyone who's ever had their patience tested, and anyone who's ever wondered if the world has a sense of humor. So go ahead, comment below, share your thoughts. Tell me what you think about what's right, what's fair, and what's justice in a neighborhood where egos run wild. Did Marlene deserve it? Was it overkill? Or was it the perfect reminder that boundaries exist for a reason? And sometimes, the universe has a way of making sure you remember that, in the most cinematic fashion possible. And as I finally stand, stretching, feeling the quiet settle over my little corner of the world, I smile, knowing that yes, today was surreal. Yes, it was chaotic, but it was also a reminder that life, funny, strange, infuriating, and poetic, always finds a way to keep us on our toes. And that's the story, the one that will live in my memory, in my neighborhood's whispered conversations, and in the slow, absurd legend of Marlene, the HOA queen who learned, perhaps too late, that some rules are meant to guide, not destroy, and some battles are just not worth picking. But man, what a morning.